Over the last 2 years, I went from dropping out of high school with no degree, no diploma, no nothing, to scaling and growing my agency as of last month, December 2024, to $154,000 a month. And I want to run you through the entire blueprint from 0 to each individual level that you're going to need to get to, from 0 to 10 to 10 to 20, all the way up to 150. And what our ultimate goal is that we're on pace to do 200K this month. Now, if I can do it with no diploma, no degree, no marketing experience whatsoever, there is no reason why you can't. And I want to run you through each individual level. I'm going to cover 3 things at each level. I'm going to go over the skills you need to develop, the constraints you're going to hit, and how to solve each individual constraint. So if you run an agency or you're considering starting an agency, this is perfect for you at each level, because I'm going to break down everything, the automations I use, funnel I use, the workflows. Just fucking sit back, enjoy this video. No matter if you're at 50K, 10K, 100K, this is going to run you through everything from A to Z and the biggest mistakes that I made that I wish I knew how to solve sooner, so I could have ultimately just avoided them. Okay, so let's rock and roll. So first stage, where like 95% of the market is going to be, is noob. Now, in order to know if you're here or not, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you're between like 0 to 5K a month, you just picked a niche, you're kind of trying to get just product market fit. You don't really have enough clients to determine if you have that, and you have less than 5 clients, and most of them are on like a performance model or on a free trial, you are a noob, okay? Accept that, but I'm going to give you a rundown of what you need to focus on. In terms of the skills to develop, it's going to be pretty much everything because you're a noob, right? But the main things are going to be cold outreach, sales, and then fulfillment. But the highest leverage thing that you can do is actually sign free trial clients to learn. And we're going to dive into that in a minute. In terms of the key constraints you're going to hit, like, you're not necessarily growing and hitting a growth constraint. It's more of a you constraint. Like, your own limiting beliefs are your own biggest constraint. So the biggest thing that I see from people that are below like 5K is they feel scared that they can't sign clients because they don't know how to deliver, right? When they've kind of got it backwards, right? You're putting the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart, whatever the hell the saying is. Because you're trying to focus too much on fulfillment, and you're just binge watching gurus trying to understand how to crack fulfillment when you don't have anybody to fulfill for. It doesn't make any sense, right? It's like saying, I'm gonna get a car and then I'm gonna learn how to drive. It just doesn't make any sense, right? You wanna learn how to drive, then you get a car, otherwise you're just getting it backwards. So you're coming into SMMA with the misconception that you can start signing 2K a month retainers with no effort, right? All of the gurus kind of just like sell the big dream because it's the easiest way for them to sell their programs. So you're going to very quickly realize, and you probably have at this point, realized it's a lot harder than you thought, as you don't know how to sell, you have no conviction because you have no products, there's nothing to be convicted about, and you have no testimonials to leverage. So the biggest way to solve these problems is pretty self-explanatory. You need to focus on the first part of the funnel, which is getting good at cold outreach and sales, because this is ultimately the bloodline of your business, right? You don't need to worry about everything on the back end if the front end isn't there and there isn't enough engagement or interest, because fulfillment doesn't matter if you have nobody to deliver for. So the main thing you want to do, and this is what I did, is you want to sign clients on a pay on results basis. And this is the happy medium between earning while you learn. Now, what I mean by that is, say for example, you sign clients where you offer like a done for you model. You call their leads, you run around, you kind of do everything for them. Say for example, you did it for roofers and you set up roofing appointments with them, or you did it for contractors and you set up at-home appointments for the contractors. You can offer that, and then you can tell the contractor, I only want to get paid when you go to somebody's house and they're a qualified lead. Like, if that happens, that is where I will get paid, right? And then you need to develop a way of tracking that, which at a low level scale, like 5 clients, is pretty easy. You just get them to like let you know whenever somebody shows up and you can bill them, right? But that way you kind of cut the curve of like not being paid anything at all, because a lot of people go into free trials, which I think is still a great way of doing it. But the thing is, if you can get paid while you learn at the same time, then why the hell wouldn't you? You know, you could literally just charge $100, $200 to book these appointments for the contractors, for the roofers, whatever market you're in. And it's just an easy way to make money, right? And in terms of my personal advice and resources to look at, this is exactly what I did. Obviously, I'm in the med spa niche, so I was booking consultations for my clients, calling their leads, taking a $50 deposit, and I was able to scale this up to around 5K a month alone. Now, at the next stage, you'll realize that the biggest constraint is you're just doing everything and it just doesn't make sense at scale because you're just super overwhelmed. In order to get clients, the main acquisition channels that I focused on, because I didn't have money to invest in paid ads, otherwise I would, was SMS blasts. So I would scrape a bunch of leads off Google, off Instagram, off LinkedIn, and I would go ahead and just send them big blasts of text. I've actually got a YouTube video on this, kind of like half legal, so just be careful with it, but there's a video here. So I've also attached a video here of the Instagram DM strategy that I was using, and then cold calling to get my first handful of clients. So all of my old videos from like 2 years ago show me at this stage. If you don't know already, I've kind of documented the journey from like 0 when I dropped out of high school, when I had nothing and no skills and kind of no acumen, to now we're at like 150. We're gonna do 200K this month, but you'll be able to just go back on my videos and see what I did, you know, and just kind of just copy me. So you'll see my first pitch deck and sales process, because you kind of want to understand the typical sales process of running somebody through a pitch deck. Text blast outreach, Instagram outreach, and then the service delivery basics as well. So like if you're, for example, running Facebook ads for roofers, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You run an ad, you get an offer, you can look on the Facebook ads library at what other people are doing. You can kind of just model it in a way. I don't really like the word copy, but you can model. But yeah, like the main focus is in stage 1 when you're a noob is you just need to sign more clients. Your focus shouldn't be on anything else. It should be on how do I set appointments and close appointments, okay? And the best way for you to do that is to just get really good at cold outreach. And as a byproduct to that, get really good at sales too, okay? So once you've developed past this point, which again, like there's so much content on how to sign clients through cold outreach. I'm not even gonna get into the nitty gritty. This is more for people that are a little bit higher level. You're less of a noob, but you're still a noob. So you're between like 5 to 10K a month. You know, have like 5 to 10 clients, but you're feeling super overwhelmed and you're doing like 99% of the work yourself. So you're doing the cold outreach, you're selling clients, you're onboarding them, you're managing them, you're communicating with them, you're optimizing their ads, you're doing everything, right? And you're just super overwhelmed. And you kind of understand your market better. Like you've dialed in your cold outreach, you have clarity around how to onboard and fulfill clients. So you've probably got like your first basic SOP created. And if you don't know what I mean by SOP, I mean standard operating procedure. An example of that would be like if I said to you, set up a sales funnel, if you didn't know what that meant, I would need to create an SOP for you, meaning I would have a video breaking down each step into how to create a funnel. And then I would have, say, for example, a Google document with a checklist of the things you need to do. You need to go to funnels on Go High Level. You need to create the headline. You need to create a video sales letter, like whatever that looked like, I would be able to break that down into an SOP. So you might just have a super generalized SOP for you to remember the checklist boxes of here's how I onboard a client, but it's not going to be anything crazy. A lot of it is going to be coming from just memory. So like if you gave that SOP to somebody who had no idea what it was, they probably wouldn't be able to fulfill on it, right? And a good rule of thumb as you develop and as you grow your agency is you want your SOPs to be so easy to follow. Somebody who has no experience in the agency space could follow your process step by step and they'd be able to do it with success, okay? Now, main skills you want to develop when you're at like 5 to 10K and maybe you've got a small war chest, like a small cash reserve of like 10K saved up, is you want to learn how to run paid ads, actual sales, which is collecting payments up front. Remember, we helped you develop your sales skills in stage 1. You're not really selling people, you're ultimately convincing people to use their money to learn. That's pretty much what you do in the first stage, but now we're actually gonna get into actual sales. You're probably gonna hire your first team member, so probably a Filipino VA, to be frank with you, and you're gonna learn the art of delegation, and then you're gonna learn how to now create SOPs. So you probably, without even realizing, created a generalized onboarding SOP in stage 1 where you just said like, okay, I need to add the client to the CRM. I need to invite them to WhatsApp or wherever the hell your communication platform is. But now you're really gonna need to learn what an SOP is and how to create one. Because if you're bringing somebody else in on the team and you just go to them and say, hey, yeah, I want you to go ahead and onboard this client. They don't know what that means, right? You might have heard Hermosi talk about it where it's like the level of detail you need to include in a task is gonna be directly correlated with the level of expertise that person has, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, build an agency to 100K a month, I wouldn't need any further steps because I've done it and I understand the process as to how to get there. But if you go to somebody like a virtual assistant who's never done that before, who makes $800 a month, they're not going to be able to do that because the skill set and experience they have in that domain of their life is very limited. So that's why you need to be even more granular with the level of detail you put into your SOPs, okay? Now, the main constraints you're gonna hit at this stage when you're at like 5 to 10K is cold outreach isn't really signing as many clients as you want. It's pretty low leverage, right? So maybe you'll do like 500 cold calls and you'll sign like 1 client and it's sucking up a shit ton of your time and you're kind of too much of a pussy to run paid ads. You don't really know anything about it. So this is where you need to start learning how to run paid ads. You know how to convince people to let you run their marketing for free, but you have a limiting belief around taking payments over the phone and don't know how to, right? Now, just for clarity, each stage here is based on my personal experience. I remember when I invested in a coaching program and they told me, you need to be collecting payment over the phone. And I was like, what? You could do that? Is that legal? Yes, it's legal. Yes, it's possible. And yes, you should absolutely be doing it, because statistics show, like, realistically, if you get off the phone with a prospect and they don't pay you, or you don't get any level of tie down, the probability of that client coming back to you and actually signing up is 0 to none. And I tell our clients this too. So it's very important that you understand this and why this is so important. And again, just like at this stage, you really need to just reframe your belief around sales. People think that sales is a very slimy thing where you're kind of like forcing somebody to do something they don't want to do. The way I see it is you're actually doing somebody a disservice if you don't sign them up and take their money, if you ultimately know that they're going to be better off if they pay for your thing than if they went and didn't pay for your thing and continued doing what they were already doing, right? Because what is learning is just a change in behavior. And if somebody is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that is literally the definition of insanity. So you're doing the best for them if you take their money and you sign them up, if you're confident in your fulfillment. Now, the key constraints that you're going to hit, as I mentioned, so cold outreach isn't signing as many clients as you want. You want to scale faster. You know how to convince people to let you run their marketing for free. You've run free trials, like a pay on performance, but you have a limiting belief around taking payments over the phone, and you're overwhelmed with work. And in order to scale, you need somebody else to help, right? There's just not enough hours in the day as you're doing cold outreach, you're selling, you're onboarding, you're managing your client ads, you're communicating with your clients. And if you're like me, you're scaling like a done-for-you agency model where you kind of call your clients leads too, that's extremely time-consuming. And this is where you really need to learn how to hire your first VA, your virtual assistant, to delegate the lowest leverage tasks. And you can hire them part-time to full-time on around $500 to $800 a month. This is another big pitfall that I see a lot of people fall into, where they get so tied into this like, oh, I want this business with like a 95% profit margin that they're scared to scale. You just need to get over the learning curve. Like, you are going to need to hire, your profit margin is going to get smaller as you scale, but it just depends what you're optimizing for. So in terms of how to solve these problems, so the first thing is lead flow. In terms of cold outreach, just being low leverage and not signing as many clients as you want. You want to start running paid ads on a small scale. So what I would recommend is super broad ads to whatever countries you're going to be targeting, static images, $30 to $100 per day, depending on the cash you have saved up, to a general lead form. And that's where you want to build out a B2B pipeline and start dialing leads as soon as they opt in to book them in for a sales call. Now, in terms of what that process looks like, I will just give you a general rundown because you don't want to overcomplicate things here, right? You want them to sign up on an ad. You want to have a generic lead form that they put in their phone name and email on. They then submit the survey. And what you want is you want to create, if you use Slack, or if you want to just set up an automation to text you, either or works. You want to set up a notification. Like for us, for example, we have a Slack channel called New Leads. And whenever a new lead comes in, it says, hey, we've got a new lead. Here's their name, here's their email, here's their phone number. So the minute that comes in, you're notified and you know to immediately go in and call that lead. And another little hack here is what you want to do on that notification is have a direct link to the contact. You can pull in on automation softwares like Make, Zapier. You can pull in the contact ID. And if you pull that in with a URL to your CRM, like for example, ours is like app.companyname.com, whatever your name is or whatever you've white labeled. If you're using Go High Level as your CRM, you can use that to pull in the contacts. You can just click on it and it'll immediately take you to the contact and you can go in and call them, okay? Now, a little tip here is on the lead form that you're getting people to sign up on the back end of the lead form, after somebody signs up, so it's on the thank you page. I see a lot of people make a mistake where it just says like, thank you, you can leave this website right now. And they're just leaving easy money on the table. It should direct them to a schedule page to book in a call onto your calendar directly. So an example of what that thank you page on the lead form should look like is, wait, your spot is not confirmed yet, or wait, your area isn't locked off, whatever the hell your ad says. Click the big book now button below to schedule your strategy session. And this is where it should take them directly to a book a call page where they can book a call directly on your calendar. And that's obviously where they're booking in a sales call, right? Now, there's going to be one of two things that happen here. So either they're going to self-book a demo call, and if they do book a sales call with you, you're then going to have another Slack channel called Calls Booked. And whenever somebody books, you want the trigger to be whenever somebody books on that calendar, it notifies you. So then you have two different Slack channels set up so you know who's booked and who hasn't. If somebody doesn't schedule a call themselves, you're going to send out an automated text in the CRM basically saying like, hey, John, saw you signed up to learn more about our marketing program in XYZ niche. Just checked and we actually don't work with a roofing company in your area, so go ahead and book using the link below. And that's where, again, you're then going to send them the book link so they can go ahead and book. You'll be surprised at the amount of people you don't even need to call them will just self-book. Our statistics show right now around 75% of our leads go in and book right away, okay? And then if they don't book, you're going to call them immediately and try to do the intro there and then. So you're going to call them and you're just going to try and get them to book in a demo for as soon as humanly possible. A good rule of thumb is you really don't want to leave your calendar out more than 48 hours if you can, because there is a direct correlation with how far people book out and the no-show rate. So the sooner that you can get on a call with them, to the sooner they sign up, the quicker and the higher the likelihood that you're going to close and convert that lead is, okay? And I know especially with new people running paid ads, it can be really scary kind of throwing money into something that you don't 100% know is going to bring you a return. But I can tell you from experience, it is the highest leverage thing that you can learn and the highest leverage fear that you can overcome. Because if you can put $1 in and get $5 out, guaranteed, you're going to make a lot of fucking money. And the way that I see paid ads is, it's literally a predictable lottery, okay? And then if they don't sign up, you want to have an automated follow-up workflow for 7 days. So that's going to be a mix of automated texts, emails, voicemails, and then you also want to be calling those leads every day too. Right now, yes, you're going to be spinning a lot of plates. You're going to be doing everything yourself. And that's just how it is when you're in the trenches in the agency and you don't really have anybody to do things themselves, okay? You don't really have the cash flow to be able to do so. I would highly recommend using Go High Level as well if you don't already have a CRM platform. And that's probably going to be the best one to use. Now, when it comes to sales, so you've got the leads coming in now, we've solved that problem. This is where you want to build out your sales framework. So I would highly recommend Hormozi's closer framework, super simple. What it stands for is clarify why they're there, label them with a problem, overview their past pain, sell them on the vacation, reinforce their buying decision, explain away their concerns. I've missed a part here. Reinforce their buying decision is at the end, okay? So go in and watch the closer framework by Alex Hormozi. Simple enough. And this is where you want to start developing your first pitch deck, okay? Again, go in and watch the video of me going in and closing my first client. You'll see this video here, closing a client live, $1,500 per month SMMA sales call. This was when I was in my first like free trial phase, right? But in this case, you really want to start developing your pitch deck. So you'll see here like a prime example of one of the first pitch decks that I actually used and how you can use it, right? You kind of just run them through the entire process and then you sell them. You kind of like drop all of the value on them, then you drop the price in comparison to the value and there's a huge discrepancy. You get the point, right? There's a lot of content on stuff like this. So I would highly recommend that you take a look at that. Now, when it comes to hiring, you want to use whenever you're hiring your first VA, because again, like at this point, you're typically constrained on time with a bunch of low leverage things that a VA could do. And like onboarding clients into Go High Level, setting up sales funnels, building ad campaigns, turning off high cost per lead ads. You shouldn't really be doing that. So at this point, then it makes sense to now delegate, right? So you want to use this platform called Online Jobs. It's really good. It's basically like a hub where everybody in the Philippines can go to get hired. So what you want to do is you just want to just copy and paste the job post that I've put here. Super simplistic, put it up and you see where it says apply here. This is where you want to put an application form where they can actually go ahead and apply. Because when you do that, you don't want to get applications on Online Jobs. The reason I say that is it's a problem that I wish I solved sooner. And I'm helping you solve this problem now, because if you have applications coming in on like 5 different hiring platforms, Indeed, Facebook, Online Jobs, LinkedIn, it gets really difficult to try and manage, as opposed to just using one centralized place to pull in all of your applicants. So at this stage, I don't think it's necessary to build out a fancy hiring pipeline and onboarding process and all of that. Just get one application form created where you know all of your applications are going to come in. And a quick tip here is on that application form, make sure that every single person that signs up to say that they want to apply for the position, they have to go in and submit a Loom video, okay? We actually don't even bother interviewing anybody that doesn't submit a Loom video. So quick tip there. Pay structure is going to be around $500 to $800 a month for full time. And just a quick reminder here that you get what you pay for, right? You can either pay through time, meaning you teach that person absolutely everything, or you pay with money. So if you have an extra cash reserve here, maybe you have 15K saved, 20K saved, do not skimp. You can literally get somebody really good for like $1,500 a month or like $1,200 a month. We've got some amazing people on our team for that. So you get what you pay for, don't skimp. If I was to go back and I knew what I know now, I would have spent more to get somebody better and to have cut the learning curve of having to teach them everything, okay? But sometimes you kind of have to do what you have to do, you know, because you have no SOPs here, keep in mind. So a lot of it is going to be, you can actually leverage that VA's expertise in previous roles and experience to be able to develop your own agency and the systems you have, right? And you might actually learn a thing or two from them. In terms of the interview cadence, I wouldn't worry about it too much at this point, but I would just recommend that what you do is you go in and audit the Loom videos that are good, get those people on a group interview. So say you have like 10 really good candidates, you're excited to interview them, even the people that you're 50-50 on, get them all on a group interview, go around the room and just ask them some questions. And then the people that you're 100% set, like, okay, these people are good, 100% on the call. Then what you want to do is you want to move them to a one-to-one interview, and then you can make the best decision on who to hire, okay? It's going to be the best, considering you're constrained on time here, as you are going to be at most stages, because the agency is a very demanding business model. Group interviews are a very good way of kind of alleviating that time constraint. And then the third constraint and how to solve it is going to be SOP creation and delegation. So you've hired your VA. Now you want to map out the lowest leverage things that take up the majority of your time, okay? The chances are it's going to be onboarding clients, like the tech side of things, setting up ads, managing ads. What you want to do is, in order to create an SOP, this is where you really need to learn how to create SOPs. So you want to record a Loom video like I'm doing here of you doing the process from A to Z, then break it down into a step-by-step in a Google Doc, okay? So if I just give you a prime example of an SOP that I created, we created an SOP for running reactivation campaigns on our clients' existing lead lists. All it is I've got a video at the top here breaking down how to do it step-by-step, and then I've got a step-by-step here as well. So you go here, then you do that, then you do that, then you do this, and then you send the client this, right? The more specific you can get with your SOPs, the more future you is going to thank you. What I mean by that is, if you're generic with your SOPs, meaning instead of like in your onboarding process, you're creating an SOP and you just put create the sales funnel, you break down, you click here, you click there, you click there, it's going to pay you 1,000,000 times over in the future, because you're not going to need to go back and recreate that. Okay. My personal advice and resources to look at, just take a look here. Cole Gordon going over the entire sales process, because at this stage, you really need to learn how to get really good at sales. Alex Hormozi's closer framework video, how to hire. A friend of mine, Billy Wilson, made a really good video on this, so I'd recommend you look at that. And then as well, this video here that I made a while ago on the sales script that made me 100K in 182 days is really good too. Cool, so now you're at stage 3. You're at like 15 to 30K a month. You've got a qualified baby agency or a bitch agency, okay? How to know if you're here? You're at about 15 to 30K a month. Maybe you have 1 to 2 team members. They're both VAs doing about $800 a month. You're running paid ads to get clients, and you've successfully signed around 5 clients from paid ads, but you're getting a lot of unqualified leads coming in and wasting lots of calendar space with no shows and shitty leads. You're growing pretty fast, but managing your clients in the operation side of your business is a shit show, and you're struggling with churn issues because your product is kind of shit and you're considering becoming a guru. I'm not lying about that when I say that, by the way. If you think about 99% of the gurus in this space right now, they all gave up at this point because things start getting really difficult and churn starts becoming a problem, okay? So skills to develop are going to be hiring onshore team members. You're going to start having to hire a client success manager, because a lot of your time is going to be constrained with client management and client admin, as opposed to something higher leverage like sales, which is where you need to focus most of your time and attention, right? It's all just, as the founder, you need to be allocating your time and attention on where the highest leverage is, like the lowest hanging fruit. For example, you spending your time at like 100K a month on running a reactivation campaign for a client is very low leverage in comparison to you managing and leading a sales team, right? Or optimizing your marketing to get more booked calls for your sales team. So it's just basically identifying where you need to channel the most focus and energy to get the biggest return. So in terms of how to develop these skills, which are going to be, as I say, hiring onshore team members, operations and automations, and standardizing your fulfillment and sales process. Key constraints you're going to hit is you physically cannot handle all client communication as well as taking sales calls, and your calendar is crazy. Because now what's happening is you have too many clients here that you're managing, and client churn's going up as a byproduct of that, because you can't manage them as well as you used to when everything was way more personalized. And then what you've got is you've also got the sales side of things, which there's a bunch of people that want to book calls with you, but you just don't have enough time on the calendar. So people are booking like a week out, and that's a problem in itself, because your show rate's going to be shit. You're also finding it difficult to manage all of your clients' ads, and clients begin to churn at a higher rate because you can't give them as much personalized support. This is a common thing that I find in the agency space, where problem is with your first 5 to 10 clients, they're used to you being there, like sucking them off the whole time and like being their best friend and like being like so close to them. And the problem is, as you grow, that's not realistic, you know? So you kind of get this misconception that you think you're doing something wrong when that happens, and you feel really bad for your clients. But the reality is they just didn't have the right expectation coming in, that realistically this is a business, and it's not like you pay for just me and I'm going to be your best friend and like do everything for you and like just scratch your back the whole time, you know? So a common misconception is it's not you. A lot of the time it can be you, but a lot of the time it's just expectations weren't set. You have clients running ads for a bunch of different services or in different niches, and it's getting hard to standardize, meaning everything's all over the place. Maybe you've got a client in gyms, you've got a client in med spa, you've got a client in roofing. Or, for example, you're in a niche like med spa and you've got like laser hair removal clients and body sculpting clients and skin clients, just everything's really messy, right? You also have no idea what KPIs are, and you need to start understanding key performance indicators. Now, in terms of how you solve these problems, first thing, you need to hire a setter. I would recommend at this point, if your biggest constraint is calendar availability only, meaning you have not enough time on the calendar, and when you get on the call, like it's a 50-50 chance on a sales call that they're going to show or they're going to be qualified, you need to move to a 2-call sales process. So what this means is, instead of going to a 60-minute call with you where you sell them right away, which ultimately you are going to get more closes with, by the way, there's going to be more drop off in a 2-call than a 1-call because there's 2 calls, there's more in the process. But if time is the biggest constraint, you need to have a setter that you hire who comes in, who takes a 10-minute phone call with every lead that books on the calendar, qualifies them, and then determines if it makes sense to book it on your calendar. That way, you're only focusing your time and attention on qualified prospects. Now, this is where the process starts to change. And I went ahead and broke this down on a Miro board here, just so you can see it visually. So this is how the process is then going to look after that point. So they're going to come through an ad. I would highly recommend as well that because you've hired a setter and because you're getting a lot of unqualified leads, you're now going to start adding qualification questions on the lead form, or alternatively, you're going to move to a sales funnel, okay? Then somebody's going to submit a survey. They're going to come into the new leads channel, and that's where the setter's going to immediately go in and call them. If they schedule that intro call, then the setter is going to call them immediately anyway and try to do the intro before the scheduled time, okay? Always, because speed to lead is the biggest indicator to the amount of people that you're going to close. There is a direct correlation, meaning from the 5th minute to the 30th minute, there is an 100 times drop off in your likelihood of getting on the phone with that person and closing them. So make sure that your setter is on the ball with calling people, even if they book a call. They can't be complacent with that. So always pushing calls forward. Now, if they don't schedule a call, same process where the setter is going to go in and try and follow up with them and things like that. Then if they schedule for the same day or another day, that's where the setter is going to see if they can try and push the call forward, double dial them. And if the lead doesn't pick up, what we actually have the setter do is they send a quick video showing them they're a real person to increase show rate. You might have seen Hamosi's new video on this where he's like, hey, John, just giving you a call. Super excited to chat with you about X, Y, and Z. We've already got a couple of ideas about how we can help you grow your business, right? Then this is where you might want to consider implementing pre-call videos. So before the introductory call they get on, we have a pre-call video that they get sent, basically saying like, show up on time, do your homework on who we are, look at our reviews, so we can kind of shortcut any like initial objections or skepticism that they have on the call, where they're like, are you even a real company? Well, it's like, yeah, we are, because you've been through the Trustpilot, you've been through the testimonials, you've seen our website, you've seen the testimonials. So it kind of overcomes a lot of objections initially. Then what we do is like, if they confirm their appointment, then we're going to see them on the intro call. That's where the setter takes it. If they don't, then the setter is going to call them 2.5 hours before and 60 minutes before and just try and get them in and make sure that nobody no-shows, okay? And if they do no-show, then we can see here, somebody no-shows. We have a pipeline stage that says no-show, which will send a series of automations, and then the setter, it will get added to their hot list, which is basically just a list of people they need to follow up with. Now, if the lead does show up, that's where the setter determines if they're qualified. If no, they're going to disqualify them. And the good thing is you've saved yourself a shit ton of time there, because you're no longer handling a bunch of disqualified leads, right? If they are qualified, the goal of the setter is to make you look like the expert, okay? They need to kind of hype you up on this call. Then what happens is the lead converts to a demo. We send another pre-call video, which is a little bit more in depth about the biggest problems in the industry. It's kind of like a mini VSL. Then they take a demo call with the closer, which is going to be you in this case. If they don't show, you're going to have a pipeline stage that says demo no show, that's going to send out a series of automations. If they do show, the closer, which is you, is going to take the demo. You're going to take payment and onboarding. And then the CSM is going to call the client and the sale is complete. In this case, you're the CSM, right? So lucky you, you're doing everything. And if they don't close, then you're going to book a follow-up. You're always going to bam fam, always on client success and sales. Book a meeting from a meeting. You never want to get off the call with anybody without knowing when the next touch point is. And then you're going to add them to your hot list and you're going to nurture them, okay? So that's pretty much the process as you develop, okay? Now, with this, you're also going to add more qualification to your funnel, as I mentioned. For example, if you're noticing a lot of people that are coming in, say you run a roofing agency and you're getting a lot of leads that are coming in that make less than 5K a month, you're going to add a qualifier saying, what is your monthly revenue? And people that answer with, I make less than 5K a month, you have a conditional format that says, are you willing to invest between X and Y in your own growth? You don't want to disqualify them completely. This is another problem that like I've done in the past. I've disqualified leads that would have closed because, for example, how do you know that roofer that makes 5K a month doesn't have another business doing $1 million a month? you know? So what you want to do is you want to do conditional formatting, where if they say they make less than a specific figure, if that's the biggest constraint for you, meaning you're getting a lot of leads with that disqualifier, ask them if they can afford it in a nice way, okay? Don't say like, can you afford this? Say, are you comfortable and willing to invest between X and Y in your own growth if the return on investment made sense? Yes or no, right? So then you can determine if they're qualified. Client success. This is where you want to hire your first client success manager on around 3 to 5K a month. And again, you get what you paid for, right? You can go to 3K. I started off with 3. I got somebody really good, but really good then to really good now in terms of development. Like, I feel like at each stage of the level you go in business, your perception of what top tier talent looks like drastically goes up, okay? So she was like mediocre. Okay, so I would highly recommend that you go on the latter side because you're going to get what you pay for. And think about it this way. First off, do not hire offshore for this position if your clients are onshore, okay? Subtle things like lingo, like building general rapport around like things that are going on in the US or Canada or the UK are really going to help. And think about it this way. Say you skimp on a CSM, you pay 2K instead of 5, but you lose 3 more clients a month. This one, who would have saved those 3 clients, maybe saved you $6, $7, $8,000 a month in recurring revenue. So when you look at it through that lens, it makes sense to pay more for better talent, okay? Now, this is where you really want to begin building out a boot camp to ramp them up and do the same for other key positions you need to hire for soon as well. Because this is a huge problem that I fell into where I would hire people and I would be the one like onboarding them, ramping them up. I would sound like a broken record. Like when you hire one CSM and you train them everything great, but like they leave and then you're like, fuck, I just spent so much time doing this and now I've got to do it again. It gets really frustrating, right? And that's going to continue to happen, right? Because like realistically, no matter how good at hiring you are, you're always going to make bad decisions with hires. There's just some things you're not going to know about people in the initial interaction that you are going to know on the latter, right? It's like being in a relationship. When you go on the first date, you kind of know like the surface level of that person. You know the facade that they're putting on, like the person they want you to see. And then on the back end, after months and months and months, you start seeing the person they actually are. And the same applies here. So what I mean by building out a boot camp is, I'll give you a prime example of what this looks like. So within client success in our company, we have a boot camp in school. So we literally use school for this, for our SOPs. So a CSM comes in, I'm not telling them, oh, here's where the EOD report is. Here's our call cadence. Here's how I'm going to coach you. Here's what a week in the life looks like. Here's how to take onboarding calls. No, I just run them through the bloody boot camp. This is the first thing they go through, right? So the boot camp kind of breaks down each individual step in the process. So client success is a very like call heavy position. This is probably one of the biggest boot camps we have, but you might be looking at this thinking, holy shit, Cameron, this is a lot of work. And you're absolutely right. Like people misconstrue how hard it is to build an agency, but it is incredibly fulfilling and worth it if you love it, you know? And if you want to make money as well. And if you want to make a difference. So like example, onboarding calls, we run them through everything. We run them through the client journey, new client steps, onboarding calls, the onboarding presentation, addressing contracts, setting projections, upselling clients, post-onboarding call steps, auditing packages, resources, the client success pipeline, how to coach clients, how to upload call summaries. So you need to get really specific. And I just want to preface this. At this stage, you are not going to have it down at that level. And that is okay. Keep it basic. Have one video on expectations and what key KPIs they need to hit in order to be successful. Okay, this is another huge mistake I made. I didn't dictate what success looked like in the role. You need to tell them. As a client success manager, you need to be upselling X amount of people. Your churn needs to be below Y, right? So if you do that, they are clear on what success looks like and you are clear. Because what you don't want is 3 months down the line, them being shit, but you not having any tangible way to say like, this is why you are not doing well. If you don't set expectations right, it is on you, it is not on the person, okay? Now, in terms of hiring for this position, you wanna hire on Indeed, or you can pay a recruitment agency. And this is where you really wanna start SOPing out your entire client journey and onboarding process, okay? Now, operations and automations. This is where you wanna move all client management to a project management tool if you haven't already, like Monday, ClickUp, Asana, to manage client communication and set up an automated form fill for when you sign a new client to automatically notify your backend team to onboard the client. So instead of you going like, here's all Jenny's information, it's like automatic, here's Jenny's info, onboard, you don't even need to do anything, you just fill out a form when they sign up, right? As well as other key automations like notifying you of when a client needs a check-in call, when a client needs performance is below KPI and things like that. Now, I'll give you an example of this, but I don't want you to take this verbatim and think, holy shit, I have no idea how to build that, because this is extremely complex and it doesn't need to be. An example of this is when a client signs up with us First thing we do is we add them to a sheet so we can log it. We add them to our project management tool. We create a contact for them in our client success pipeline. We Slack our team. Then what we do is we actually automatically create the client Slack channels because we communicate with our clients in Slack, right? So that is a prime example of how all of the new client information pulls in. The whole team is in on the loop on the back end with when we sign somebody. So they know, okay, we need to get ready to onboard this client, right? And the same applies when a client fills out the onboarding form. When a client fills out the onboarding form, they come into this automation, which basically triggers the following. So this is where you really want to start dialing in your automations and your operations. And it's only going to get better as you develop and as you hit problems. We only developed this level of complex systems and operations when we found problems. It was usually through an extreme period of pain. A client would churn. We would ask why, and they would tell us why. Your onboarding process was shit. Okay, so we fix it, right? So here, what happens is we create a contact. We've actually started leveraging ChatGPT in our automations, but that's a different story. We update the task for the new client with all the onboarding info. We Slack the team, and we actually go in and we use something in Go High Level called a snapshot. So what this basically means is we created a templatized Go High Level account for all of our clients that just automatically gets copied whenever a new client comes in. So it saves us so much time. We don't need to build everything out again. We create the sub account and we automatically fill out all of the custom values, okay? So this is a prime example of like some key automations you wanna implement. And then when it comes to like tracking KPIs and things like that, watch this video from Ryan Dice. It is incredible. It goes over something called a CEO dashboard that you should be looking at. And it's basically for each individual department in your company, you need to have 2 to 3 core indicators of success, right? For example, in sales, it might be 30% close rate, right? And then each week you're gonna go in and look back and see, are we on track to do 30% close rate? And if not, what levers do we need to pull, okay? One of the biggest lessons that I learned going from 50K to 150 was this: tracking KPIs, diagnosing constraints, assigning solutions. And then you also wanna standardize your fulfillment. You wanna get specific on what client you can help and standardize your fulfillment so everything can be similar between clients. So the funnels, the ads, the automations. Now, not everything's going to be copy and paste, right? You're not going to use the same roofing testimonials for one client as you are for another, but the core fundamentals are going to be the same. The funnel template, the automation text, right? And you can pre-fill custom values based on the company and things like that. This is where you need to create a Go High Level snapshot, okay? My personal advice here is, at this stage, you are the biggest constraint in the business and you need to delegate client success so you can focus on selling. And if you haven't already, you want to get Fathom and record all your calls. The reason I say that is because it's going to make building SOPs easier for later down the line. I made this mistake of not using Fathom, like a call recording tool, for like a year and a half, which meant a year and a half of calls where I would train and develop people and explain things. I would have to re-explain them again, and it's so fucking annoying. So just please thank me later and just get Fathom. And then if somebody asks you a question, and you've already had a call with somebody else in that department with that question, just send them the damn recording. It saves you so much time. And you want to also consider hiring a high-level tech specialist here, somebody that's like 1.5K a month, who can help with the super complex automations, because it's beneficial for you to learn, but at scale, you will need this, okay? Because there will be a lot that breaks, especially if you're running a done-for-you business. People underestimate the level of operational complexity in a done-for-you business, even a done-with-you business, very operationally complex. So moving to stage 4, speaking of operations, this is what I call the operational shit show. So you're at about 30 to 60K a month here. You have about 15 to 20 clients. Your profit margin is getting smaller because you're having to hire a bigger team. You might have around 3 to 6 or even 10 people if you have a call center, and you do not have the time to sell, and you may need to hire a sales rep around 50 to 60K a month. What this means is your time is the biggest constraint again. So skills to develop here are going to be sales management. So the biggest constraints you're going to hit is you don't have time to sell and you need to hire a sales rep. This is more around the latter end of this stage, which is like 50 to 60K a month. I'm a big advocate for like always keeping hold of the highest leverage thing in the business. And one of the highest leverage things you can do is sell, okay? So unless the only reason that you are unable to grow is because your calendar is too busy and you can't take any more calls, or you are just naturally very, very bad at sales and you hate it, I would hold on to this as long as you can. I mean, I'm still selling every now and again now. I'll still take 3 or 4 calls every month just to keep the sales muscle going, making sure that I'm keeping in on the loop with market trends and sophistication. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And your hiring process is taking too much time, and you may have some B2C players on the team right now that you're afraid of letting go because you don't have a dialed in hiring bench, meaning you don't have other people that are really good that you know that if you let go of Johnny, who's kind of crap, that you could refill his position in a week. So you're scared and you're keeping Johnny out of a fear that you're not going to be able to replace him in time and it's going to put too much work on your plate, okay? And you feel like you're in Slack 10 hours a day answering the same basic questions and you're ramping up new team members, but you feel like a broken record, right? You're repeating yourself with the same shit, as I mentioned a minute ago. You're scared the key players on your team are going to leave because culture is kind of non-existent and you don't really know how to lead properly, right? And it's okay to admit that. I know that a couple of months ago I was a really bad leader. I'm not a great leader now, but I'm definitely getting there. And then managing the team is getting hard and it's almost impossible to keep in on the loop with what they're doing, right? It's very hard to be like, what's Johnny doing? And Lisa and Stacy and Rufus, like what the fuck is everybody doing? It's all over the place. You don't even know if half the people on your team are actually working or not. So how do you solve these problems? So sales, this is where you want to hire your first commission-only sales rep to take sales calls. And yes, just to break the limiting belief and the things that are coming up in your mind, they will and can be better than you. This is a limiting belief if you think otherwise. I did this in around July or August of this year, hired my first sales rep. And I remember when they first got a sale, I've never felt so good in my life. And now it's just every day and I'm like, cool. But like, nonetheless, I'm telling you, people can sell and they can actually sell better than you because the bad thing about the founders selling is they see everything. And because they know everything about the product, they focus on being a product specialist and not a prospect specialist, right? You need to be a prospect specialist. If you start focusing on like, oh, we have this automation and we do this on the client success side and the intricacies of the Magatron or like all this bullshit they don't care about, you forget about what the ultimate goal is on a sales call, which is your solution needs to be the simultaneous reason why everything else in the past they've tried has failed and why this is different, okay? So you need to be a prospect specialist. Now, you need to build here a sales rep bootcamp, much like the client success one I just showed you. Keep it high level. A good rule of thumb is you need to make sure that you have a workflow breakdown video breaking down like, oh, somebody signs up on an ad, then a funnel, and then they come in the pipeline. You need to give them KPIs. Here's your close rate. Here's the amount of upfront cash I want you to sell. Here's how our program works, what we deliver, what contracts we have, what guarantees we have. And then what I would do is I would have 10 killer sales calls from you. You want to record yourself breaking those calls down each part of the process and explain why you're doing what you're doing, okay? And a good rule of thumb here is like, you want to use calls where you followed the process, okay? Because there's something that I fell into as well called founder syndrome, where you think you're really good at sales, but the reality is you're just the founder of the business and you're always going to be better at sales than anybody else, purely on the basis that you have the most conviction in the product because you built it. So one thing you don't want to fall into is just selling on you being the founder and kind of like using that to sell people. So when you are considering hiring a sales rep, start following a process. I would rather have a sales rep that follows a process down to a T than one that is really good that never follows the process. And the reason I say that is because we've had scenarios in the past where this is exactly the case, and the one that follows the process closes more because the process works, okay? So yeah, you want to do that and you want to build out a boot camp. And then hiring, this is where you actually want to start building out a hiring pipeline and go high level. And you want to create application forms for each key position with a mini sales video on each position so you can keep the hiring machine on at all times. So what I mean by that is, you might have heard Hormozy and a lot of people talk about, you want to keep the sales machine on at all times. The hiring machine is no different. The hiring machine must be on at all times. You might be asking why? Well, the reason why is because if you're in a position where John is a C player, he's on your team, but he's in a position that you know you can't get rid of right now. Maybe he's a media buyer. He's managing all your clients' ads, but you know he's just shit. Like he's not good. You need a bench of people that you know, okay, I've got Lisa on the bench here that's really good. I'm going to bring Lisa in, I'm going to train her, and then I can let go of John and it's going to be a seamless transition, right? So you want to make sure that you have as many people in the hiring pipeline as you do in the sales pipeline. Because otherwise, what you're going to hit at each stage, by the way, is a hiring constraint, especially if you have a done-for-you agency. Now, an example of what this is going to look like is the following, okay? So if I show you like a media buyer position application form, we have a video breaking down the position. We have key qualifiers that we ask. We use a tool called Jotform. We found it's really great for applications. Like, please describe your experience with the following tools, experience with the following skills, type of industries have you ran ads in, how soon can you start, where'd you hear about us? And as I mentioned at the start of the video, we get them to submit a Loom video. If somebody doesn't submit a Loom video, we don't even look at their application. We don't consider it, okay? So that's where you want to start building what I call a hiring knowledge base, where for each key position you always need to hire for media buyers, CSMs, sales reps, setters, call agents, right? If you've got a call center, have an application form, have a job post, have all of that ready to go and just keep it running at all times. For example, for us, for CSMs. We spend about $10 to $30 a day on ads on LinkedIn, and we just keep it running because I'd rather have too many candidates than too little, because the cost of having nobody in that position is far greater than the cost of me spending $10 to $30 a day, because that's going to be the biggest constraint to our growth otherwise. Now, team support. You want to create more standardized SOPs for the most common client problems and scenarios that come up. And you want to make text and email templates that the client success team can use to send to clients. So we do this by having a form that the team can fill that triggers an action in Make. So what I mean by that is when the team is asking you like, hey, how do we run a reactivation for this client? How do we change the funnel for this client? How do we change the ads? The way that we do it, which we found to be most effective, is we have one big board and we have one big scenario. So say, for example, we are increasing a client's ad spend. I don't want me to be the sole way of being able to do that. So what we did is we created a form for each common scenario. And a good rule of thumb is if it happens once, fine, it's a one-off. If it happens twice, keep it in the back of your mind. If it happens 3 times, you've got to create a process around it. So the way that we do it is this form gets filled out with the client, right? And when that happens, it triggers an automation like this, which basically says like if somebody fills the testimonial form, it creates an update on Monday and it slacks the team, okay? And it does that for each individual SOP that we have. So that way, like when this gets filled, all it's going to do is it's going to create a task for the tech person with the increasing client ad spend SOP attached with a deadline attached. So I'm no longer involved in the process. I have systematized all of the most common fulfillment scenarios that can happen, okay? And this is why it's important to create a very standardized fulfillment system. So there's not as many of these processes as possible. You want to minimize as many of these SOPs as you have to create, okay? Team ramp up. So you want to move all your SOPs to school, and you want to start making boot camps for key positions you hire frequently to make the ramp up quicker. That's what I just ran you through a moment ago with the client success boot camp, sales rep boot camp. You want to make one for media buyers, tech people, call center agents, and even managers at that level that you want to scale. And then culture. This is where you want to implement a monthly meeting with the entire team, if not a quarterly meeting, where you set projections for the company, you develop and go over your core values, and you need to develop a big enough vision for the A players to fit their vision inside of the vision. If you have somebody that is a killer in your company, I'll tell you the biggest reason that people leave companies when they're an A player is because they feel inhibited and limited on the amount of growth that they can have, okay? So your goal as a founder is to fit their vision inside the company vision. So you need to make the company vision so big that Jenny, who wants to make 10K a month, can fit their vision inside your vision, right? And if your goal is to become the #1 roofing agency in your market, and you know that's going to be like a $1 million a month opportunity, then you know that Jenny, who wants to make 10K a month, can easily fit her vision inside of that, okay? And then team management. This is where you want to implement, if you haven't already, end of day reports. FFTs is a focus for today. So end of day reports, they fill out at the end of the day. Focus for today's at the start of the day. Here's what I'm focusing on. And then end of week reports, recapping what they learned. So you can keep it on the loop with what's actually being done, okay? Prime example of this is the following for a sales rep, where we grade them on energy, focus, biology. We make sure they did their admin. We check up on their KPIs, and we get them to fill out today's metrics, reflection on any trainings they went through. We get them to grade themselves, and then they do a daily roll-up, okay? So that way, this automatically triggers the submission to go into Slack to me and the team manager, so we can go in and keep in on the loop with what's going on, okay? I hope this has been invaluable so far, by the way. If you like this type of content, I want you to let me know, because I want to do more of this stuff. My personal advice and resources to look at, this is probably going to be the roughest period yet. Expect it. New level, new devil, and each level is harder than the next. And don't expect to ramp up a sales rep and let them just figure it out. You need to meet with them and the client success team every single day, okay? Stage 5, we're nearly there. Fires fucking everywhere. So this is where you're at 60 to 100K, you're at about 30 to 60 clients. Everything is broken and you find yourself spending so much time hiring for the same positions. It's getting increasingly difficult to try and manage your team because there's too many people to manage. You feel like everything needs to be ran through you in order to do shit and to get shit done. And you kind of feel the need to micromanage. You hit a new level of operational shit show and everything feels broken, and it's getting harder and harder to manage all your clients while keeping churn low and also growing the business. Skills to develop are learning to let go, managing managers, how to delegate big projects, and separating departments. Key constraints you're gonna hit are key team members may churn, like sales reps and client success. Like I've had to rehire our client success team 4 times simply because of poor leadership on my end. Because I did not treat our client success team like a sales team, and I didn't coach and develop them at the level I should. I mishired, okay? So do not make that mistake. Client success are burnt out sales reps, they are the people you need to hire, okay? What typically happens is when that happens, you take a big churn or revenue hit and you feel like you've taken 10 steps backwards, back into like stage 3 or 4, and you're considering going guru again. Now, just for clarity, the reason I say this is because at each stage, I've considered going guru and I just didn't know when it made sense. And that's when things get really tough, okay? So if you're thinking that, it probably is a good indication, or if you're thinking about changing opportunity or changing niche, that you're about to break through into a new level, okay? So just keep going. The team task board is a shit show and it's very difficult to stay organized. Your client success manager is too busy and is feeling overwhelmed. You don't have enough time to check on every team member, and you question if half the people on the team are even doing anything, and churn is going up as a result of you growing fast. So when it comes to team churn, you need to develop a better culture, implement a weekly team culture call to talk about anything but work, where you can just learn more about your team and really bring the culture together. You want to have bi-weekly one-to-ones with key team members on your team. You want to dial in your hiring onboarding process. What I mean by that is in the onboarding process, you now want to have a one-to-one with everybody that hires, not just onboarding them in the tech, but mapping out their goals and how you can fit them into the company vision. Hire slower, call references before you hire, and run all hires through other people on your team so they can meet them and see if they notice red flags. By this point, you might already have a manager in the team. So for example, you might have developed one of your call reps into a call center manager, or one of your media buyers into a media buyer manager for the rest of the media buyers. People like that, people that you trust, people that are culturally aligned and are there for the long run, run new hires through them. Have a leadership call and see if they like them, okay? Because I've often found that my leadership team can pick up on things that I can't. Team tasks, so things getting really difficult to manage. Separate the team task boards by department. So you might just have one general board that's like team board with all of their tasks. You want to separate things now. So you want a media board, a tech board, a client success board, a billing board, an operations board. And you want to also consider separating the team into pods, okay? So what that means is maybe pod 1 manages 50 clients with a media buyer, a tech person, a CSM. Pod 2 manages another 50 clients with a tech person, a media person, and a CSM. So you're going to need to start developing mini businesses inside the business, okay? Other things, you may want to consider hiring another CSM if your current CSM is handling around 40 to 50 clients. And if project management is a problem, meaning you're struggling to handle like deadlines and who's doing what, you might want to consider hiring a project manager. We did that and it was a game changer. You want to implement required exit calls with all clients. I would actually go back and do this in stage 1. Put in your contracts that every client that signs up with you needs to have an exit call so you can identify why clients are leaving and focus on fixing the common patterns. You want to promote or hire within team leads to manage departments such as the call center, media buyers, tech team, and you want to officially build your org chart and share it with the entire team. If you don't know what I mean by org chart, something like this, where it's like Dean is the CEO, we can see like this is Johnny is a media buyer, just so visually you can get clarity around who the next hire is going to be. And you can also see what your team looks like right now. And your team can see that too. So everybody has clarity around where the dots are connected, okay? A couple of other things that I'll mention on this point that I haven't mentioned. I mentioned here that obviously churn is going to go up. That's natural. And the way that you can kind of prevent that is just making sure that you fix the operational leaks as fast as possible and hiring another CSM. And as well, when it comes to your client success manager being too busy and being too overwhelmed, make sure that you validate that and you don't kind of brush it off, because if you just brush it off, you're going to fall into the problem that I fell into where they churn as a byproduct of being overwhelmed. And then you're in a really bad position. Because I'll give you an example. Right now I'm managing 80 clients and we've got 2 CSMs that are ramping up. But when a CSM leaves, it puts you in a very bad position because it is a very sticky position. It's not like a sales rep that you can easily replace. They have a connection with a lot of clients, okay? So your client success managers are your key players. You must keep them, and you must have one-to-ones with them on a frequent basis and make sure they're happy. And I hit this a few times last year where I would go back. I think 2023, October, we did like 80K. February of 2024, we did 30K. We had a 33% churn month. And that's because we had a client success manager leave for the first time and it left us in a very bad spot, okay? And it made me realize all of the holes that we had, right? I was trying to like fix everything by just selling more people when realistically I just needed to eat the frog and solve all of the operational issues, okay? So stage 6, this is where I'm at right now. This month, we are on track to do around $220,000, okay? In 10 days of Jan, we've done about 75K. So yeah, we're gonna be on track to about 220. But how to know if you're here? You're at about 100K, 50 to 110 clients. You have at least 2 closers and 1 setter that can sell without you. and you have 2 client success managers managing clients, and you're removed from client success. Now, just to be clear, like this isn't set in stone, because for example, I have 2 CSMs, but I'm the one managing a lot of the clients because we get to rebuild our sales and client success team, right? So these little things that you don't see as you grow are going to happen, and they're just going to be specific to the business. You might have things I don't see, like I didn't encounter, and vice versa, you know? At this stage, it's common for either your product to break or you get bottlenecked on fulfillment. The key strengths you're going to hit is churn. This is usually due to not treating your CS team like a sales team and not enough training. Have a daily meeting with them. Have one-to-ones with them. Weekly if you can, bi-weekly if you can't. Growth slows down because if you churn at 10% with 100 clients, you churn like 10 clients, right? Most agencies, you'd be surprised, are actually sitting at about 15 to 30% churn. So imagine a 30% churn at 100 clients, you're churning 100 clients a month. This is why a lot of agencies really struggle to get to like 100K MRR. I'm not talking 100K 1 month with PIFs. That's fucking easy. Anybody can do that. 100K MRR consistently can only be done by getting in the trenches and having a good product. And sales must ramp up and you must fix your product. In order to solve these problems, you need to plan out for when you want to add in a back-end offer to increase LTV. So you can either just keep clients on a monthly rolling, or say you're selling like a paid in full for like 4 months. Then at the end of the 4 months, you need something back-end to sell them for like 6 months, which is like a good benchmark is double the duration, double the price, okay? Fully productive sales and fulfillment, because when you have the same people coming in, the same way, the same context, the same problems, it becomes very easy to build a client journey and fulfillment process around that. And your fulfillment also becomes a conveyor belt. It's very easy, right? It's like making a toothbrush on a conveyor belt. It's just the same thing again and again and again. There's no like, oh, well, this toothbrush needs to have golden sparkles, like the client that wants to come in and run their type of ads, you know? You need to keep everything like a conveyor belt, because that is how you scale. And when you're doing everything to everyone, like a full service agency, it becomes much harder. This is why I said earlier on in like stage 2, you need to productize your fulfillment so you don't hit a constraint now. It's not impossible, but it's extremely tough. And it likely requires big contract values to be able to support a large amount of talent and staff. And one of the common pitfalls here are poor management skills and lack of training in developing your CSMs. That was a lot of information. I hope you got value out of this. If you want this document, it's going to be below the video. And if you want more content like this, please let me know.